You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers about hikers for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hey everybody, so glad that you've decided to come back to the show. This is Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. I'm Steve Adams on Mighty Blue. And today we're breaking some new ground for the show. My guest is a Frenchman who lives currently in Belgium, and he has taken on quite the task. Obviously, I'll let him speak for himself, but when I tell you that the task he has taken on has jumped to the very top of my bucket list, you'll understand that I'm really excited about what he's doing. Lord Tom will be along soon, and I can't wait for you to hear what he has to say. If you're like me, you're going to get very excited. And having curtailed her New Hampshire adventure last week, Katie has made another sensible decision. And listening to her, you'll hear how calm she is having made that decision. Katie will be on after Lord Tom. Finally today, an emotional chapter from Passin Thru by a Winton porter. This week, Winton finds that he's had an enormous influence on a hiker's life, and it impacts him greatly. So now, I'm really looking forward to hearing your reactions to this guy. Here is Lord Thomas Bouissaguet, or as you're going to hear me name him, Lord Tom. So I'd like you all to meet the very first Lord we've had on the show. This is Lord Thomas Bouissaguet. Hey, Lord Tom, how are you, my liege?
Oh my God, I love to be introduced like that. Jeez, that's a very good introduction. I'm very good now.
Good. And so let's get the Lord bit out of the way.
Yes.
You're not part of the aristocracy per se, although something happened to allow you to use the name Lord. Tell us about that.
Yeah, when I was 18, I was granted a magnificent 9 meter square of land in Scotland. What happens is that Scotland in some places tries to plant new trees and try to protect the environment. And one of the funny ways they made it is by selling to people all around the world a little bit of land. And technically speaking, a lord is just somebody who owns land in Scotland. So I am technically a lord, despite being 100% French and having no clan whatsoever. But one day I'll get a clan.
Well, I got to tell you straight away, you've given yourself your own trail name. You are now Lord Tom as a trail name. It's just got to be. So I'm going to call you Lord Tom going forward. Now,
I'm fine by him.
You recently posted on Dixie's Facebook page about Hexatric, which I'd really never heard of before. You're kind of hoping that it's going to be the French version of the Appalachian Trail. Is that right?
That's exactly the idea. What we do have in France is a vast country, a lot of good food and stuff like that. One thing that we have also is actually technically more trail than the entire US combined. More marked trail. Yes, we have a vast network of trails in France that is actually marked, maintained, and all of that is freely accessible to anybody in France. And that's something.
I'm going to come back to the maintenance and all that sort of thing and the network of trails in a minute, but it really hit the spot for me because the website you put together shows a magnificent video, although the trail so far, the entire trail hasn't yet been hiked. So let's start with your interest in hiking, and then we'll talk about how you got involved in Hexatric. As I understand it, hiking's really quite new to you, isn't it?
Yes, it's actually something that happened. I mean, hiking has been new to me. But as a child, I would be going, because I'm from the south of France. I'm from Toulouse, so it's really close to the mountains of the Pyrenees. And my grandparents have a cabin in the Pyrenees, so we would go there when I was a kid. Yeah, that was pretty good. But it's just for day hikes here and there. And during my 20s, it was just like one hike from 2 times a year maximum, because I moved to Belgium. So I was away from any mountains. So for 10 years, I was away from mountains. And last year, I got lucky and a little bit ambitious, let's say, and I tackled a brand new through hike that was developing in Croatia. So I went to Croatia with almost no previous knowledge of hiking, especially not long distances. And I went to hike the Via Adriatica, which is brand new, and it's 1,100 kilometers across all of Croatia.
So for Americans and Brits and other people who can't make that calculation, and even myself, you basically have to multiply it by 62.5%, I think it is. So 1,100 is about 670 miles, something like that.
I have to believe you on that one.
It's not that far off, but that's not too bad. But that wasn't you didn't intend for that to be your first hike, the Via Adriatica. You intended to actually do the hike that would have actually got you on this show. for this, you were going to do the Appalachian Trail. Why on earth were you going to do the Appalachian Trail as your first hike? And I say this as somebody who did the Appalachian Trail as their first hike.
Yeah,
so
I know.
Why were you going to do it?
I heard about you doing the same, so that was actually funny to me. Why? Because I don't know. The first time I heard about the Appalachian Trail was a long time ago, and that kind of long distance trek doesn't really exist in Europe. We have some, but it's not very popular. That's not something that we talk about a lot. We usually do more day hikes and stuff like that. So when I heard about a trail that was crossing almost all of a country and that was taking for some 6 months to do, I thought it was stupidly fun. Really stupidly fun. Like, oh my God, that's stupid. Nah, that's crazy.
That's exactly true.
Yeah, like, oh my God, who can do that? And then I read articles about people that actually do that. And I was like, my God, is that an option? And little by little, this worm just like got stuck in my head. And I read Bill Bryson, like I think everybody who is interested in the Appalachian Trail one day.
I don't know whether you know this or not. Bill Bryson splits the Appalachian Trail community in half. People either love him or really hate him.
Really?
I love him personally. I've always read Bill Bryson and I love the story, but I know a lot of people think he's a phony, but whatever.
No way. Oh my God. Yeah. Well, I'm in the first category, definitely. I loved his book and I even liked the movie because I'm a very easy audience. But I really liked it.
It was a shocking movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jimmy was fine. I mean, I could see for the first time the real Appalachian Trail and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Even though they are brown bears and not black bears and stuff like that. Even I could pick up the problems, but I liked it. Anyway, so I had that in my head, and in 2019, it was a personal low for me. I was in my real first job, and I was hating it. And my girlfriend, with whom I was for 10 years, decided to leave me all of a sudden. So I was kind of in this complete crisis of identity, like, who am I? What am I doing? I was living in Brussels. I still do. And it's not my country. It's not, I have nothing in here. And I was like, my God, what can I do with my life? And obviously, like many people, when you don't know what to do with your life, you go doing stupid things. And my idea was to be alone for 6 months in the woods. So I was like, yeah, that's going to cure me.
Hang on.
That's a good idea.
How did you think that would make you feel better about your girlfriend leaving you?
I think it's sheer stupidity. I mean, I felt in a moment like I have nothing else to lose. And I am not by any stretch of the imagination an outdoors person because I live in Belgium and Belgium doesn't have outdoors. It's as sad as it is. It doesn't exist. So I was dreaming of it. I was thinking I was because I'm obsessed with hiking gear. I was buying hiking gear all the time and I was never hiking. It's just because by owning something that can lead me outdoors, I felt like I'm a bit outdoors. I was like...
You realise that you don't just have to buy the hiking gear; you actually have to use it as well.
Yeah, that I realised after.
So how did you start? So when you decided that's what you'd kind of like to do, spend 6 months in the wood, how did you start preparing for it? How were you working out the sort of gear you actually needed for a 6-month hike?
So apart from the book that I read, I started to watch a ton of YouTube videos about how to actually hike long distances. So that's how I got the bug of the ultralight. And I started to really think about ultralight hiking. It's not a thing in here at all.
Oh, really? Really?
No. Actually, this is one of the issues. When I was preparing my bag for the Appalachian Trail, that I never did, I was trying to buy as many things as possible in Europe because of custom taxes. Because everything you buy in the US is taxed. Like for example, my tent, I bought like the tent that everybody uses on the Appalachian Trail, like all the high-end, like the duplex from Z-Packs, and I had to pay 250 euros more just for the custom taxes.
Oh my gosh!
Yes, and also a speeding ticket because I was too excited to get it from the post office, and I didn't see the cop that was telling me to slow down on my motorcycle, and so I got another 200. But anyway, so I mean, it was like the cost was really ramping up. So I tried to find as many as possible in Europe, but it's really difficult because we have a ton of very like ancient, history, good brands for hiking, but they don't care about ultralight. Ultralight is really a new movement that comes from this long-distance trail kind of place. So we don't have that history in Europe. So it was really difficult for me to find the gear I needed. So most of the time was actually trying to find gear, and it took me months and months, like watching the videos in YouTube and checking the gear of this guy and the gear of this guy, and going on weird forums and talking to weird people and trying to find the exact sweet spot I could go to have exactly my bag. And that was not an easy task, and it took me a lot of time.
So you prepared all your gear. Did you actually make the trip? I mean, I know you'd booked your flight. Did you actually make the trip to America?
Nope, I never could.
So what was when were you expecting to fly then?
If I recall correctly, I think it was in March.
It all shut down middle of March, didn't it?
Yes, and it was 2 weeks before. 2 weeks before that, I was actually in a plane to another place. I was going to St. Petersburg, and in the plane to St. Petersburg, I received a message like Donald Trump is now banning every European to go to the US. And that was 2 weeks before. And I was like, no!
Oh, dear.
And I know another guy who wanted to do exactly the same. And he got actually more savvy than me, I would say. He actually jumped into a plane the same day when it was announced. He is a guy from Copenhagen that I was following on Instagram, and he actually managed to do it. So
good for
he
him.
went and he managed to do the AT this year. So I was like, oh my God, yeah.
So there you were, no girlfriend, plenty of gear, a dead ticket for America, so you couldn't use that. So you went and did the Via Adriatica in Croatia?
Via Adriatica. Yeah.
So where does that start and where does that finish then?
So it starts near Pula. Pula is the city that is the closest to the beginning, which is actually Kamenjak. So that's at the north point of Croatia, and then the trail goes along all the coastline. And what is amazing there is that you have actually a chain of mountain, the Adriatic mountains, that are along the coastline. So all the time you're walking on a mountain, looking at the sea. The entire trip. It's
sounds
insane.
Magnificent. And does that have any of the attributes of the AT and various other trails over here? Does it have shelters? Can you camp wild, or is there places to resupply?
So what I didn't know when I started is that it is a brand new trail in a country that has developed a lot of its coastline, but not its mountains. So basically, I was the 10th person ever to finish the trail. So nothing was ready. So that was the funny part. It's because I didn't know. I really thought it was like the AT, and I went there like, yeah, it's going to be easy. I didn't even research anything. I thought, I have my gear. I can do anything. I can survive anytime. And there are even bears there. So I was ready. I had a bear sack, which nobody has in all of Croatia. Nobody cares about that. I was the only lunatic who was a bear bag. But nothing was ready. The parts that are exactly in the mountains are famous. So you have trails there, like the Premuzich Trail, which is a magnificent trail that was made in the 30s by men with just pickaxes and in like crazy terrain. It's beautiful to see. But all the junction between all the known trails don't exist. and only 10 people passed there. So it's basically just fighting your way into the jungle at points and fighting with the thorns. There is no marking, so you have to rely on the GPS. There is at one point, we had to pass through a minefield from the Bosnian War. So yeah, that's the kind of trail. It's the kind of trail where
you must have been really pissed with your ex-girlfriend, mustn't you, to go put yourself through all of that? Oh my God, that's terrible. Exactly. But you did this trail.
It was fine.
You finished it as the 10th person to finish it, which is remarkable, by the way. But that got you thinking, didn't it, about France? So tell us your thought process, and this is really why you're on here. So tell us your thought process behind this then.
So basically, this trail in Croatia is brand new, and it was the idea of just one person who wanted to celebrate the landscapes of Croatia and try to develop something that is less known than the coastline. And it got me thinking when I finished, my God, I just crossed the country by foot. And I find this idea exciting. And you have the same, for example, if you go to New Zealand with the Te Aroha, that helps you, allows you to go across all of the country in one setting. And I found it amazing to discover it so slowly. And at the end of it, I stayed there 3 months. And I felt like I kind of know Croatia. I mean, I don't know Croatia, but after spending so much time with the locals and so much time discovering, I was like, my God, this is amazing. And it got me thinking, why don't we have that in France? Because France has incredible mountains, incredible path, incredible all of that. And we don't have this kind of long distance trail. And I got thinking also about how a complicated mess it would be on a bureaucratic standpoint. Because France is really famous also for having permits of literally everything for literally everything.
And this is the interesting bit. And when we talked about this, you explained this to me. Yeah. It's kind of difficult to put across to people, I think. So tell us about the makeup of the system of trails right now in France and how they do or they don't fit together.
I'm going to try to explain, which is the best I can do, because even I struggle, and we all struggle even in the team of the Hexatric, because it's really, really complicated. So basically, France doesn't have any free places. Everything belongs to a commune. So it is a municipality, it is a town, it is something. So whenever you want to do something anywhere, you have to have permit to do it. And it can change, in one mountain, between 2, 3, 4, 5 different communes that all have to say yes, 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 yes.
And you actually said that nothing is French. It's all land belongs to the community. Yes. And I presume there's an elected government for that particular community who has to give approval for pretty much everything that goes on on that land.
Exactly. There is nothing that can be done on the French level. There is no, maybe if the president decides, but I don't know. I haven't talked to him yet. But there is nothing that can happen directly we're taking this.
I don't put this beyond you, by the way. I don't put this beyond you at all. You're a passionate guy. So I think you'll speak to Macron one day if he's still the president. Yeah. So you've got all these different trails. So how many trails then would make up Hexatrek if they're these different communities?
So that's difficult to say. So we have 3,000 kilometers. That is, we calculated it in miles, but I can't remember. 3,000 kilometers. It's a lot of miles. 1,800 or 1,900 miles. Yeah. Yeah, something like that. It's a lot. That crosses all of France. So basically from Wissembourg, which is the beginning next to Strasbourg, basically the German border. And then we go all the way to the sea, to Hendaye. Hendaye is the Basque country, and it is next to Spain. And the idea is to cross.
So if anybody, for listeners, if they know a map of France, it's in the top right-hand corner, the northeast of the country, down pretty much all the mountain ranges on the eastern side, and it hits the south and goes right across towards west on the Pyrenees, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. The idea was to hit the best mountains along the way, and also to stay in the least populated areas, because the least populated areas are where, according to French law, and that's, again, very complicated, you can tent. and you can actually put your tent for the night. Because the rules for putting your tent are rather complicated. It is still possible, which is kind of new in Europe. I mean, very little European countries actually allow you to wild camp. And it's technically not wild camping, it's technically bivouac, which is also a difference in the French law, because everything is complicated. But basically, you have to be around 1 hour away from any road. There again, 1 hour doesn't mean much. It depends if you run or if you walk. So it's kind of the appreciation of anybody. And you have to be away from a water source and stuff like that. So the trail has been calculated so that most of it's around 75%, is accessible by tenting.
Wow, that is surprising to me. So you didn't actually route the trail, did you? There was somebody else. I've written the name down. I've forgotten his name.
So
sorry
Kevin.
About that. Kevin, that's right.
Yes.
Kevin. So tell us about Kevin.
So Kevin is actually he's the kind of person who doesn't ask for permissions first. So when I came back from Croatia,
he doesn't ask permission; he asks forgiveness.
Exactly, he is very startup nation. He's going to hate that I say that. He came back like me. He did the PCT in the US. He actually took some time to cross all of America, not just USA, but like South America and like the continents. And he did the PCT along the way, and he had the same idea as me. Like, my God, the PCT was amazing. Why don't we have that in France? Wow. The difference with me is that he didn't ask for permission. He took a map and say, yeah, I think it would be good if it does that. He put the name, and then he started a website and everything. And that happened around 8 months ago.
Wow.
He's starting doing that 8 months ago. So what happened is he just did it. He didn't care if it was possible or not. He just like took a map and drew it and thought maybe it will attract people's attention. And obviously he did, because everybody was excited about the idea.
Yes, I was, it is stunning. And I know the video you show isn't of the trail per se, but of the region which the trail goes through. It is absolutely stunning. I'm sure people, if they obviously a lot of people follow Dixie's Facebook page, they would have clicked on that link and seen the thing. So you've put together some sort of association. Is that right?
Yes, that's what we are starting now. So we have an association with Kevin, obviously, and with Dylan, who is a documentary filmmaker who actually hiked the Terrora and, like us, thought, why don't we have that in France? So the three of us had the same idea at the same time, but Kevin did it. So we decided, okay, we have the same excitement for the project. Let's all join forces and make this trail a reality. So we created an association, like you have the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, and this aims at promoting and also trying to help the hikers along the way by providing information and providing, resources to prepare it and answering the questions, because we have a lot of questions.
I'm sure.
And preparing.
And remember, this has not been hiked in its entirety yet. So Hexatrek 2022 is the project right now. Yeah. Tell us about those first hikes and when they're going to happen and how they're going to happen.
So you have two projects of first hikes by the Hexatrek team. So Kevin, Dylan, and myself. And also now we know that at least 50 people are going to Thru hike it this year. And I say at least because this number is ramping up all the time. We have already people who want to create an fastest known time for the Hexatrek. We have 2 or 3 who contacted us who want to run it, so they will finish before us. So the two projects, the two official projects, is the Walk of Pioneers. That's Kevin. So Kevin is going to start from Hendai in June, and he's going to walk all of the trek in one go, obviously. He's going to through hike it. And you can join him for a week along the way. If you go on the participation campaign on Ulule that we are running right now to raise money to create the app, the mobile app to hike it, and you can walk with him for a little bit. And Dylan is going to go along and do a documentary series about this, actually, this hike. So that's the Walk of Pioneer, and he's going to go from south to north. And I, obviously, will go on the other side, north to south, and I will do it solo. and with also a documentary, because I'm a journalist, and a documentary more centered about what you are going to expect during the Hexatrek. So the people you can meet, for example, the guy who's making the cheese, and the cheese is so important. The guy who is going to be in a cabin in the woods to help you, and etc., etc. And I will host that in English because. I want to present French with an English flair.
Your English is remarkable. It is so darn good. It really is. You speak it perfectly.
And, that's very nice.
And the path is comprised, you told me the other day, of 47 trails within France. And it is one continuous trail. There's no road walking between paths, is there?
No, it's one continuous line, and again, it's a beta test this year. Nobody has hiked it, so in theory, we know it. I mean, and the trails already exist. We're not building anything. We just created a path that is the most efficient, we say, and the most beautiful that we can find when we want to through hike France. So. In theory, there should be no problem. We have some people who hiked some sections already, and we know that they are good, and we know that it works, but it's always the same. It's a first edition. Maybe there will be problems along the way. It happens.
Well, remember the ATC was first thought about 100 years ago, but it was only first hiked about 70-odd years ago, or whenever it was, or 75 years ago. So it took a long while. So I think this is a remarkably fast-track project in many ways. So any trail can only really exist with an infrastructure. So it's important that we hear the plans for how this is going to grow up as a trail. Let's start with resupply. Does the trail go through sufficient areas where resupply could be available?
Yes, it for the moment it goes through a town or next to a town every 3 to 4 days, and some section, like the longest section, are 7 days without town.
Wow.
But it's France, so we have, like I said, a vast network of trails, and at any given time, it is possible to hike back to civilization in less than a day. It's really rare that you are so deep in the wilderness.
How is that? So you will leave if you need to get out on, say, that 7-day stretch, there'll be somewhere you can get off and a route you can take down into a town.
Yes, because, for example, you're following the ridge of the Pyrenees. So as long as you stay in elevation in the Pyrenees, you're not going to meet civilization. But at any given time you want to go back, you can go down the mountains and you will find a village.
Wow. And how high does it get?
So the maximum point is 3,000 meters, which is
about 9,900 feet. So that's 10,000 feet.
Yeah.
So it varies between 10,000 feet and how is it mainly mountains you're going through?
It is mainly mountains, but you have stretches without mountains, especially the beginning in the north section before you hit the Vosges. The Vosges is a lesser-known mountain region in France, but it's also beautiful. You have high mountains in the Alps and the Pyrenees, and the rest is low mountains. Also in the Vercors, between the transition between Alps and Pyrenees is less mountainous, and you will end at the sea. So you obviously sea level in the end.
And you go round, you take in part of the Tour de Mont Blanc? Is that part of the trail as well? You go near Mont Blanc?
I think there is a slight section on the Tour de Mont Blanc, yes. I have to check back the map on that one, but Kevin is the master of the map, so he knows better. But I think there is a little bit. And Kevin is actually living in Chamonix, so he's next to the Tour de Mont Blanc. Yeah, he knows this area by heart.
I've skied there, it's beautiful. So what about leave no trace principles? Because, a trail can be messed up really quickly. So do the French have a similar system to the Americans in respecting their trails and, pooping off the trail and that sort of stuff?
Yes, in the sense that French people, we had this statistic not long ago that only 5% of the people who go in the mountains actually sleep under the tent. So we have very, very, very little usage of overnight camping. So less also traces left behind, because people go mostly on mountain huts or mountain cabins where you have to pay to lodge, and there they are protecting. So I hiked the GR10, which is like a bit of the GR10, 10 days on the Pyrenees this summer. And it is quite impressive to see how good the trail is and how little litter you can find on the trail. Because for the most part, because you're doing hike at the day, you don't really leave stuff behind. It's quite, I would say, quite okay as it is now. And obviously, when you attract the kind of crowd that goes for through hiking, most of the time, through hikers already know the concept of leave no trace behind, and they already know, like, they already love the mountains. And it's really rare that you will see that kind of crowd really destroying the environment.
Which is really important, and that
Yes,
needs to be
essential.
an important part of your association. So the individual trails are maintained by effectively, like they do the AT, individual clubs or associations have maintained their section of the trail?
No, it's actually, this time it's national. So you have one national association, which is called the FFRP, Fédération Française de Randonnée Pédestre. That's impossible to say in English, but basically...
Easy for you to say, yeah.
Yeah, right. This is basically the Hiking Association of France. And they have a monopoly on all the trails of France. So they own the IP, they own the copyright, and they own also the maintaining of this.
What do you mean they own the You said this, and I thought I must have misheard him. You mean they own the copyright of the trail? What does that mean?
Yeah, that's something weird in France. But every trail, so the drawing of a trail, is actually copyrighted like it's the work of an author. So any use of that trail has to be approved by the FFRP first. So that's the legal. That's part of all the legal complexities of such a project, and that we are going through. One at a time.
Do you have legal help right now?
No.
You need it. Man, you need it. I know France is bureaucratic. I mean, Britain's bureaucratic. I mean, everywhere's bureaucratic, but France is really bureaucratic, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I mean, we're going slowly for the moment on that part because we don't know and we don't want to ruffle too many feathers because we're doing something that we usually don't do in France, like not asking for permission, like you said.
Don't ask permission, ask forgiveness.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we are, for the moment, creating a movement and trying to create... what we're creating really is an experience and a brand. I always say it like that. It's like the Tour de France. Anybody can pick a bike and just like ride wherever they want in France, but doing the Tour de France is doing the Tour de France. They're not creating anything, but they're creating an experience, and when you do the Tour de France, it makes sense. The Hexatrek is the same idea. It's anybody could technically tomorrow go and hike it. It's not a secret. We're going to give away the map for free when we finalize it, and anybody can go. So we're not doing anything except creating something that is worth taking in consideration for the next years. If you want to through hike France, this is the path.
Wow, that is just so amazing. Are they going to be, and talking about the infrastructure, they're going to be shelters or huts, or you say you've got cabins already.
Yes.
I mean, how is that going to work for people?
So we have in France scattered around a lot of cabins that have not been yet repertoried. I don't know this word.
Repaired.
No, they don't know where it is.
Reported.
Reported, yeah, exactly, that
yeah.
one. Yeah,
Okay.
Répertorié in French, and I was confused. So we have a lot of those, and we don't know exactly where they are. There is no website to say where they are. So Kevin has been doing a lot of work on trying to find them all, and he is adding them to the Hexatric app. So this way you can have in the app all those places that are unguarded, and anybody can open them and sleep in them. Some are in very good conditions. Some are terrible. And I say that because
I've slept in shelters on the AT. Trust me, they can't be that bad.
Well, I was this summer on one of them that is like not on any map, and I was in the middle of a storm in a mountain, and I found it, and I was so happy to do it. But really, only the storm made me stay inside because that was just like disgusting. But anyway, it's there and it's possible. So for the moment, we have those. It's not at all exactly where you want them. It has not been made for the Hexatrek by the Hexatrek. So it's more, we can use them. And you can also use the paid cabins that you can find almost anywhere. It's quite expensive because it's France, and France is quite an expensive country. But it's always possible, and you can eat there, and you can eat incredibly well there. But that's part of the things that you can use. And in the very long run, we're dreaming of making a system of shelters like on the AT. That's our goal. But all the legalities and budget aside, it's just like,
yeah. Do you know
it will
what?
take time.
When we first talking about it, I was thinking after we spoke, it's really had an impact on me. When we spoke, I thought to myself, when people start doing trail magic on that trail with French wine and French cheese, oh my God, I'd never be able to leave there. It would be the most awesome thing.
That's very true. And I have to be honest with you, the moment I decided to do the Hexatrek was this summer. So after a year after my real hike, when I was hiking in France finally, because I don't know France that much. I have been out of the country for a long time. I'm not the best French person ever. And when I was on top of the mountain, eating my bread from the local bread maker, eating my cheese from the local cheesemaker, eating my ham from the local ham. And I was eating that sandwich, the most simplistic sandwich in the world. And I was the king of the world. I couldn't believe my taste. And I was like, oh my God, that's what I want to eat for 6 months. I want nothing else than this. This is insane. And I really think that it's my taste buds that decided me more than anything else.
That's hilarious. So one more quick question before we talk about why is it called the Hexatrek?
Oh, it's actually French people call France the Hexagone. That's the nickname we give our country.
That didn't help. Spell that one.
An hexagon.
Oh, hexagon. Okay, right.
Yeah, but in France we don't pronounce the H. We say hexagon.
Okay.
And because this is the hexagon, because the country actually looks like an hexagon,
it does, yeah.
and it's a trek, so we were like, Hexatrek, makes sense. That was the idea of Kevin, and at first I was like, oh, I see it. And now I now actually find it quite clever because the hexagon is also France without Corsica, for example. Corsica is part of France, but when you say Hexatrek, it's really crossing all of the hexagon. So that makes sense.
Yes, it really does. I'll tell you what, man, you have taken on a monumental task. I love the vision and how you're going about it. When you've done the trek, let me know and we can have you back on to share with us what it was like. I tell you, I think I may have found another bucket list item for me. It sounds so attractive, and I urge listeners to look at their website and just you'll be gobsmacked by the little video they put up there. If it goes through any of those places, man, it's going to be the most beautiful hike. So I thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing with it. I wish you nothing but the best, and thanks for posting on Dixie's site because I wouldn't have seen it otherwise. All right.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much for giving me the luck to actually talk about it to an American audience because it has been hard to put the word out. So I'm actually quite excited.
That's so cool. Okay, man. Well, look, great to talk to you, and we'll talk again soon. Okay.
Yeah. Well, no problem. Thank you very much.
Cheers, then. Bye.
Bye-bye.
What a guy, eh? I thought he was one of those visionary blokes who just go for it. He credits his mate Kevin, but I thought he sold the concept of a French Appalachian Trail as well as anybody could. I would love to do that. French bread, French cheese and French wine on the top of a mountain in France. I'm sure hiking doesn't get a lot better than that. I urge you all to go to their website. They have English and French versions. Then click on the button that says watch the film. It is going to blow your socks off. It's only short, but it is awesome. I'm definitely going to chat with Lord Tom when he's done that hike. I really can't wait. Oh yeah, by the way, I almost forgot. Once I named Lord Tom, and I think we all know how great it is to name somebody and somebody to take on the name that we give them. He seemed fairly happy with it, but he told me later, after we'd finished recording, that he'd been named on his Via Adriatica hike. Apparently, he was called Pomalo by the Croatians. It means chill or take it easy. Well, I don't know about you, but I think Lord Tom's got a better ring to it, don't you? Well, as I told him, he's always going to be Lord Tom to me, whatever he calls himself, or whatever the Croatians call him. Thanks again to our donors. Stepping up again this week are Todd Withrow, Kevin Cross and Andy Hood. But we also got donations from Alan Hansen and my friend from my 2014 hike, Molly McCarthy, or Bad Camel. The support from all of you is priceless to me and keeps our shows going. If you'd like to help out, head on over to hikingradionetwork.com and click on one of the many donate buttons there. Thanks to one and all. Now let's hear from Katie, who's relocated herself several hundred miles south in Tennessee. Here's Katie.
Hi, Steve.
Hey, Katie. Right. We'll get straight into it. As I understand, you've just got two
Sure.
bars.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. So where are you right now then?
Yesterday I came over Big Bald, and I
Lovely.
am about 11 miles past that now. So almost to Irwin, I
Right.
guess, maybe about six more miles or so.
It's
and
quite
I'll
a downhill.
probably
Quite a downhill into Irwin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just gonna try to find a stealth camp, I think, and just stay there for tonight.
Are many people on the trail? Many people on the trail right now?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh, really?
There were not many people in New Hampshire and Vermont. I mean, I was out there a lot of times by myself, but
Right.
I think there's like this big group, an adventure group or something, and I just kind of went past them to they were at the shelter last night, so I just am moving forward today. So
Yes.
not such a crowd. Not such a crowd.
You'd rather stealth camp. Now, with this with last week's revelation of news on you with you,
Mm-hmm.
you've got a bit more news, haven't you?
Oh yeah.
Share that with everybody.
You want me
think
to?
so.
Sure.
Well,
okay.
no. Before you share it, just tell us
Okay.
what you've been doing this week.
Okay, so I finished up what I needed to do in Vermont. It was fun. The night before I got off trail, there was a bobcat hanging out around my tent.
Oh, gosh.
I think he was lovesick because he would go between making these high-pitched calls to purring, and
Oh my
every
God.
now and then I'd just bump my tent and he'd get quiet, and then it'd start up again.
Do you get frightened? Do you get frightened of that, or are you quite relaxed?
No, it more or less I'd go back to sleep and then it'd start up and it'd wake me up. But a bobcat's not going to, they're not going to be aggressive towards a human, and so I didn't feel threatened at all.
Cool.
In fact, I think he was in love with me.
There are worse things.
Anyway, and then the shuttle driver who picked me up had picked me up before and taken me to Albany to the airport, and he showed up with a bottle of sparkling wine.
Oh, that is cool.
So that was so nice, and so that was fun. And then I flew to Asheville, North Carolina,
Sure.
and stayed with my brother and sister-in-law. And next morning, got on trail, and so I'm out my second day out now. So, and it's been the weather just beautiful, and
Yeah.
saw the rhododendrons again. I'd forgotten about the rhododendrons.
Wow, really?
So
That's interesting.
It's so fun to see the Southern Appalachians again. So that's nice.
Yeah. So you're back down there, and the goal was to hike to the south end of the Shenandoah. Yeah, but that's changed as well now, hasn't it?
Yes, yeah. I made the decision, Steve, that I am going to finish up around Damascus somewhere in the next 10 days to 14 days, and that will be it for my year.
Right.
I will be somewhere around 1,700 miles, and I've been out here it'll be 7.5 months. I was out for 4 weeks, but still my head was on the trail.
Yes.
For the 4 weeks that I was healing my leg. And so I feel done. I feel, I don't know, there's not any one thing. It just feels like it's now time for me to get off, for the year. And then my plan is to come back and fill in those gaps, and
including New Hampshire.
Including
New Hampshire.
Oh, absolutely.
Good. Quite right. Quite right.
That.
I don't know whether you read it, but I texted you back when you said what you were going to do, and frankly, I think you've really approached this in a sensible way. I think you made a lot of wise decisions, perhaps sometimes after you should have made them before, but you've certainly made some really wise decisions. And I think if that's how it feels, then that's what it should be. You can't force this. You have to you'll have to just be absorbed by the hike, and it'll either will let you carry on or it won't let you carry on. And if in your mind this is time, then I think it's the right time, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do, and I think what I wanted to do is to go for another 2 weeks and really enjoy this autumn weather and the trail and get the most out of it. And honestly, Steve, I feel nothing but gratitude for everything I've been able to do and the experiences I've had. And so, and the trail has whispered to me that it will be here waiting for me.
And don't forget, you've walked 1,700 darn miles. Virtually nobody in this country walks 1,700 miles. So, that's a massive achievement. And it's affected some people in this country who haven't walked 1,700 miles in their entire life. And you've done this over a period of this year, which, I think you've got to take a lot of pluses away from that. So, as you're starting to wind down, do you feel your hike is now coming to an end, or are you just going to try to really enjoy it for the next couple of weeks? Because you're going to go on to, did you say Damascus?
Going to whichever comes first, Damascus or 14 days, 10 days. I think it's 10 days now.
Okay. Does it feel different now? Now you made the decision?
I feel a lot of pressure off me, so I'm really enjoying it. I feel like I'm enjoying it more than I was because it wasn't just my goal to complete a through hike. It was my goal to have a naturalist experience, an immersion experience. And what was happening was I was trying to make big miles and I was very fatigued and I was losing part of that experience that I had also wanted to have that was as key to me as completing the through hike.
Yeah, sure.
So it was, I didn't want to lose that. And that's what was happening with the pressure of trying to beat the season. And,
sure.
It's.
What do you think you'll take away? What do you think you'll take away? I mean, you must be lying in your tent now at night thinking back to what's happened. There've obviously been lots of good times and lots of pretty crappy times, but then that is being on the trail.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think it's going to leave you with?
The thought that just keeps coming up is how grateful I am I even got to do this thing.
That's right.
I think about the people who, they think about it, whether they lack the resources or maybe even the courage to just, begin the trip.
Sure.
And so, yes, I'm really grateful. And I do feel like I've gained a level of confidence about navigating my way through the forest and feeling comfortable in the forest. I've had lots of experiences in the forest, but I do feel at ease, an ease that comes with being out here for so many months.
It's been your home, it's been your home. And it's suddenly,
right.
I know you've been home a few times, so you've had the opportunity to restart every time, but this has been your home for on and off for 7.5 months. It's quite a considerable change in life. What are you going to do when you get home then?
Well, I have to move into my house, an apartment I have, so have that. So that's going to be the first order of business.
I'm sure.
And I was laughing because I picked up a book from one of those free little libraries when I was in Gorham, and it's The Art of French Country Cooking. So it's like a little paperback, and I'm laughing because I'm reading this book. It's a French cookbook in my sleeping bag. So, and I will continue hiking, probably even during the fall and winter. And so it might be day hikes, it might be just a quick overnight, but that will continue because it feeds my soul and it feeds,
You may actually think
feeds me.
You may actually think when you get back home, you know what, I will go back out there for another couple of days or something like that. Or, you never know what's going to happen. You've got 2 more weeks. Yeah. You might think, I'm really back into this now. And if you're enjoying it and you've got the time, you don't have to do anything else. Why would you not want to carry on? So, never say never. Just the fact that you've now got yourself a plan for the next 2 weeks, great. Enjoy your way towards that. And you'll know when it's time to get off. And you'll know if it is Damascus, great. If it's 2 weeks, it's great. But whatever it is, it's your choice and you're going to be making it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, the main thing is to stop what I'm doing while I still feel grateful, while I still, am feeling the happiness and joy that something like this can bring you.
Sure.
So,
and you got a Katahdin picture. I mean, it's all good.
And I've got the Katahdin picture.
Well, I want us to I want us to still record your journey because this is all it's so interesting to me. And that when you look back on this, if you listen to yourself in this podcast, you'll hear changes in yourself as time goes on as well. So if you get the opportunity to see how you've changed yourself, I'd love to when you do finish, have you back on in 2 months' time after you finish and say, well, what do you think? What do you think now? So, I want to carry this on.
Absolutely.
This has still been an amazing journey this year, and I've enjoyed following you. So, just keep going, and we'll talk again next week in a normal way, and hopefully you'll be as happy then as you are now.
All right, sounds great, Steve.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers then. Bye.
Okay. All right. Bye.
What a tough call, eh? But she made it because it was the right thing to do for her, nobody else. And if we've learned anything from Katie's story, or indeed from any of the stories we bring to you on this show, you need to hike your own hike. I don't know how many times we need to say it. If it doesn't feel right to you, don't do it. And if it does feel right to you, do it. I'm sure she's going to miss it when she gets off, but I'm also sure that she'll look back on this summer with pride, nostalgia, and as she said, with gratitude. Sometimes when I've recorded her, she's been hurting. Yet she's stuck with it and has always presented a positive outlook. I'm totally satisfied with my choice of who to follow this year, and I will certainly keep tabs on her next year as she fills in those gaps. Now, some of you may be wondering what's happened to the new podcasts I've been talking about. Well, we signed one up this week, and we've even agreed on the artwork, so we're on the way. I won't tell you who it is yet, but I'm pretty pumped by our ideas. Interestingly, it's been mainly women who've started a dialogue with me about this. So come on, guys, let's think about what you'd like a show to be about, and let me help you bring it to our listeners. Email me at steve@hikingradionetwork.com. We can get going. Oh, and by the way, I seem to have screwed up my steve@mightyblue.com address. So if you've written to me at that address, then I've never received it, I'm afraid. So I'm not being rude. Just stick with the hikingradionetwork.com account in the future. Cheers. Finally today, somebody hands over a valuable, to him, keepsake. It's the story behind it that will entrance you. I'll see you next week. Chapter 9. The Special Gift. A Tuesday, a polar wind pushes its way through the old stone wall to slap me out of a shallow sleep. I pull the comforter over my head and find myself alone beneath it. Margie must have decided to trade privacy and companionship for comfort. She left the bed in the night for a warmer place away from the house's porous north wall. Unable to sleep but reluctant to move, I stay in the bed, drifting through random thoughts. I remember my run over Blood Mountain last week, and I thought I should run north on the trail today. I wonder if little Alison escaped her crib again last night. Thoughts of yesterday's guests start crowding in. Who they are, what they need, who will be safe and warm, and who will be victims of the bitter cold. I push them out, roll over, flip through mental pictures of mountaintops. Now another stirring of air brushes across my face, but this one is warmer and going the other direction, toward the window from inside the house, and this time it's not a breeze. It's from something that moves more precisely, carving a groove through the air, Something flying through my bedroom. The hair on my arms bristles. I toss the blanket off and sit up in bed. A single bedside lamp reflected by the wood-panelled walls gives me a clear view of the room. I see a wide, winged shadow float across the ceiling and dissolve in the darker colours of the cracks in the chestnut walls. My mind tries to interpret the aberration. Ceiling fan? There is none. An airborne handkerchief? A curtain floating listlessly from the rod over the window? There are no curtains. Within seconds comes a deafening crash, and shards of glass fly through the air. My head jerks toward the window on the north wall, and I glimpse a red-headed bird falling outside the panes. It's a pileated woodpecker, and now the wind is whistling through a woodpecker-sized hole in the glass. I'm wondering if my day will be any better than his. The door to the room opens wider. Margie enters, dressed in her usual sleepwear, a lilac down jacket and matching pants that fit her thin frame perfectly. They're from the fashionistas at the North Face. I doubt that Victoria's Secret could create an outfit more sensually splendid for a man of my taste. I gave her a flirtatious and bleary-eyed smile. "You look warm. Want a snuggle?" She ignores the question and looks up at the hole in the window. "Pileated woodpecker, right?" she says. "I thought I saw a flash of red go through the living room. Think he's dead?" "I doubt it's dead. It's alive and well, enjoying the idea of a perfect morning. I don't think I'm that lucky today." She rolls her eyes, shakes her head with a grin. "Come on, it's nice in here. I've got these warm blankets, just a quick snuggle." "You're not that lucky," she says. "You've got to get ready for work." She steps backward through the threshold and closes the door gently. Dryocopus pileatus, the crested tree cleaver of the North American forest, is the largest of the common woodpeckers. Its wingspan reaches 26 to 30 inches, and it stretches about 1.5 feet long. It can hammer an incredible 20 strokes per second. Its thick, spongy skull and specialised cartilage, muscle and membrane structures protect the bird's eyes and brain during this violent labour. For this tough-as-nails species, whose most famous member, the cartoon Woody, is a relative wimp, a window pane is nothing more than an appetizer. After installing cardboard in the broken window space, I get dressed and walk over to the store. The woodpecker is gone, having left behind just a white and black tail feather on the windowsill. I half open the front door of the shop, and on cue, Skydog squeezes through, swatting the door and then the door frame with a tail, preceding me into the dim interior. She checks the perimeter and returns to my side, tail wagging now against my leg. This is how she says that everything is safe. I rub the wall until I find a light switch and flick the lever. The aged lamps blink out a brief struggle against the cold air, and when the bulbs come on, they cast hardly more light than shadow through their steel grills. The smell of smouldering ash from yesterday's fire drifts through the air. I go to the source. The old iron stove stands proudly below the blackened stone fireplace. We call her Iron Maiden. She has dutifully warmed weathered souls for more than 30 years. I open her heavy doors and they creak from age, like an old-school locker. A handful of twigs, mixed with some dry leaves and a few small pieces of cured oak, kindle Iron Maiden back to life. I take a step back to admire the morning dance of flames jumping in the belly of the stove. A slight wisp of air curls the hair on my neck and beckons me to turn around. I hear the familiar rattle of the door's rickety latch. Damn, did I lock it? The questioning face that comes peeping through the doorway belongs to Chief. He has freshened his comb-over, still wet from the shower. He speaks in a whisper. "Are you busy? I wanted to ask you something very important." He steps through the door and closes it carefully behind him. He moves slowly, quietly, deliberately, dramatically. I rub my eyes and yawn. It's too early for drama. "What can I do for you, Chief?" I shuffle toward the coffee maker. He asks, "Would you bless me?" This brings me up short. It takes me a moment to comprehend the word he's used. I'm not a professional blesser of things. This might be the first time I've heard this request in my life. "Bless you?" "Yes, it's for Ash Wednesday." "But it's Tuesday, Chief. Mardi Gras. I think you got this whole equation backwards." "Yes, but I'll be on the trail tomorrow." "Chief, I don't know nothing about blessing nobody, and I may be the last person you want blessing you. I'll drive you down to Blairsville today if you want. In the time it takes me to do some grocery shopping, you could get blessed 15 different ways." Intent on his sacred business, Chief can't be bothered to show irritation or amusement at my joke. He ignores it. He's not going anywhere. "All you have to do is take this ash, put it on my head, and repeat after me," he says. This is no longer a request. These are instructions. He grabs my hand and smudges a nickel-sized blob of mud onto my fingers. It has the moist, grainy texture of dog shit. I sniff it distrustfully. I know, Chief says, not ash, but I couldn't find any, so I scooped up some dirt from the garden. Just say what I say and places on my head when I'm done. Chief drops to one knee beside Iron Maiden and looks up into my eyes like a doleful retriever puppy. After positioning my hand inches from his forehead, making it hard for me to miss, I guess, he incants in his rich baritone, Father in heaven, the light of your truth bestows sight to the darkness of sinful eyes. May this season of repentance bring us the blessing of your forgiveness and the gift of your light. Amen. I close my eyes, repeat the words as Chief says them. Arriving at Amen, I press my bit of dirt to his head. When the benediction is over, I open my eyes, only to see 3 people standing in the doorway looking on. They're neo-hippies, early 20s men with half-grown beards. One's in a shirt from a Fish concert, and one has dreadlocks done up in a bandana. The third one, who wears hemp bracelets on both wrists, looks a little less confused than the others. Ash Wednesday, dude, he says, and the other 2 say, oh, right on, yeah. Chief rises from the floor and gives me a gentle hug of thanks. My eyes remain frozen on the 3 men in the doorway. I don't like the idea of being laughed at by guys who talk about Jerry using just his first name instead of the more respectful Jerry Garcia. Chief, blob of dirt firmly stuck in the middle of his head, tells them that I'm a great man and that I just blessed him. It's Ash Wednesday, I scream helplessly. I thought it was Tuesday, dude, says the dreadlocks. Yeah, dude, but he's going to be on the trail tomorrow, says Hemp Bracelets. So he had to, deputise. Exactly, Chief says. Nodding all around, everyone's satisfied with the explanation. I'm still not sure the stuff on Chief's head doesn't have at least a little dog shit in it. Well, if it's already tomorrow, then I guess we're open, I say. Come on in and make yourselves at home. I'll get the coffee. Chief follows me to the back of the shop toward the coffee maker. Winton, you remember that I wanted to give you something? It means a lot to me. It's special. I want you to have it. You've helped me more than you know. This actually started yesterday. Every time I thought I'd gotten loose of him, he'd pop back into the store and make another profession of his gratitude. He followed me around most of the day, asking if I had a minute because he wanted to give me something special in private. I hadn't had a minute because it was the height of through hiker season, and anyway, the request made me uneasy. The more he talked about giving me something special in private, the less I wanted to know what he had in mind. I had done my best to ignore him. I couldn't believe he was still after me about it. Come on, Chief, I say. I helped you lighten your pack load, and I provided a little advice. No big deal. You'll just get a little farther along this strange footpath towards Maine. Exactly. That is why I want you to have this. He extends his hand and slowly opens it, revealing in a slightly muddy palm a small picture of a woman encased in a cheap, round plastic cover. Who's that? Your wife? Brandy? No, Chief says. It's Mother Mary. He lifts the trinket carefully with thumb and forefinger and holds it closer to my eyes. Of course, I say, once I've had a better look at the lady's costume. That's part of what I'm giving you. The other part's the story behind it. Chief tells the story. It was the winter of 1973, just after New Year's 1973. Our precinct was dealing with a hostage situation in the downtown Howard Johnson on Loyola Avenue in New Orleans. Guy by the name of Essex, ever heard of him? I hadn't heard the story of Mark Essex, or I had forgotten it a long time ago. Sometimes it seems that history doesn't disturb us in the mountains, that the big events leave us alone. But when history reaches us, it touches us with a special force. It costs something extra to carry stories to an isolated place. We meet the people who have paid that cost, who carry history to us. Many years ago, there was a young Black Panther named Mark Essex who was full of anger and despair. Essex killed 9 people in New Orleans, including the talented and admired Deputy Chief Louis Sergo of the NOPD. Then the police killed Essex. They flashed him onto the roof of the hotel, and there, firing from the rooftops of surrounding buildings and from a helicopter, they put more than 200 bullets in him. I learned this piece of history the mountain way, later than most, but from a witness. The man had already killed several people, grocer, doctor and his wife, 3 NOPD, and had fired on hundreds of officers with a high-powered .44 Magnum rifle, so negotiations were not an option. The fight was well into its 8th hour when my commander, he asked me and another deputy to follow him into the building. I was nervous, and I said so to my commander. He said, "Don't worry, Cover my back and we'll be fine. This medallion saved my life that day. He holds it inches from my face and gives a sad, thankful smile, remembering. See, every time I went into an uncomfortable situation, I tucked Mary into the underside of my watchband. He demonstrates. Rotating his wrist, palm up, he tucks the piece carefully under the metal clasp of the black leather band. So, we're climbing the hotel stairwell, headed for the 10th floor. It was dark because power to the building had been shut off. He'd set fires in several of the rooms. We moved slowly. We were pausing at every landing. Once we arrived at the door to the 10th floor, my commander took first position, and I took second, which was slightly behind and to his left. He flung the door open and extended his shotgun into the dark open space between the door and the hallway. Then there was this blast of light. It appeared out of the blackness, this boom. Rifle shot ripped a hole the size of a grapefruit in my commander's abdomen. I raised my shotgun. All I can do is point it at that blast of light. And I swear the last thing I saw before returning fire was this picture of Mother Mary, the same one that I had under my watch. She flashed before my eyes like she was there protecting me. His eyes swelled with tears as he points to the picture tucked under his watchband. I got off a few rounds, just shooting into the dark, and then I could hear the guy running away. Then I turned to my commander, who was lying on the floor, trying to hold on to what little life remained. Me and one other immediately grabbed his hands and feet and carried him back down something like a dozen flights, out the door and into an ambulance. He was gone before we hit the back door, and not a day goes by that I don't think about him, pray for him. Chief ends his story there. He looks up toward the ceiling and back down at his watch and then draws the little charm from his wristband and hands it over to me, saying, "That was a long time ago. I want you to have this. You would help me more than you know, and this will help you, son." So it's a funny transaction on both sides. I accept a thing I don't know what to do with. Chief gives up a thing which he believes has given him divine protection for more than 30 years. I have to conclude that the gift, whether it really is a holy talisman or just a cheap trinket from some convent's jewellery sale, isn't the point. I get a close look at Chief when he presses his picture into my hand. He's giving happily. He's lighted by 35 pounds and one life story. He has unburdened himself. Chief wipes his eyes in an attempt to prevent tears, but a couple get loose and roll down his cheek. He tells me he's leaving, then he starts working on another one of his grand statements of thanks. This time, knowing what's coming, I cut him off the only way I know how, by clapping a hug on him. We squeeze and whack each other a few times. Then we go together through the front door and outside to the front walkway. Chief grabs his pack, now a much lighter version, with one hand, hefts it onto his shoulders and starts toward the trail. I watch him go. Was this a man much given to a lot of hugging and weeping back home? Somehow I doubt it. My guess is that Chief's sentimental side is a surprise even to himself. That's what coming face to face with the thought of 6 months in the woods will do to you. As soon as you realise you have the chance to be a different person, you become one. You can forget who you are. This is no accident when you've spent miles wondering with every laboured step, who is this person who has decided to try this? Wondering who you are. You have nothing but time to answer the question, to give a new account of yourself. Your only witness might be a blanket of cool moss on a sunny day, or a panorama of endless mountains, or a young doe grazing by the trail. You've yet to discover that the journey is the destination. So you lose yourself, then you find yourself again, farther along. It's possible that Chief gave up the protection of Mary because he decided that he was no longer the man who had needed her protection. And maybe my gift to him then was a new idea of good luck. In a box headed back to New Orleans that morning were his machete, his field manual. These things, he'd once thought, had protected him too. He didn't need them anymore either. Later that day, when I fall into a trance at the overlook, watching mists burn off the slopes of the valley, it's the honking horn of the UPS driver that snaps me out of it. The truck has come to pick up Chief's box and many others. The man in brown slams the brake and jams his truck into park. I see through the window of the large door that he's out of his seat and scuttling into the back before the truck, box-shaped and full of boxes, has stopped rocking on its wheels. Then the door slides open and he leaps out, carrying a package about the size of 2 cases of beer. He bounds up the stairs, skipping half the steps, and meets me at the top. "How are you today?" I ask him. "Better today? Look forward to tomorrow. Trying to forget my past." He sets the package down and hands me his digital signature board. By the time I hand it back to him, he's carrying an outgoing load of hiker boxes tucked under his chin. In a hurry, he says, with a tight jaw. He turns, leaps down the stairs, jumps into the truck and roars down the hill. I look down at the package and notice that it's actually a hard-shell foam cooler. Stamped on the side, urgent overnight delivery, Bayou Bounty Seafood, Butte, Louisiana.